morning, students. Miss Connor here for Integrated Topics. Today's date is March the 23rd, and this is also for March the 24th's lesson. So, 3 classes left until the end of the marking period. Are you ready? So, for today, we're going to need a pencil, calculator. I collected the homework and the classwork that was not done from last class for a grade. And also, you're going to need loose leaf paper for your notes. But prior to notes, we had an open notes quiz. So it's on exponents, adding and subtracting polynomials. So while students were doing that, it was a 10-question quiz, dealt with exponents when we're multiplying and dividing. And we also had a couple questions that dealt with adding and subtracting the polynomials. So we spent like a good part of the class period doing that. And then once we completed that, I wanted to review a couple of questions. So I think it was a total of 3 questions. Let me rise that up a little bit. So after the quiz, had them take out a piece of paper, and I wanted them to do these 3 problems on their own. So we had 2n times 9n squared minus 2n minus 12. And number 2, we had 8g squared h times g squared plus 9h minus 6gh. I know, trying to say that 5 times fast, right? And lastly, number 3, 12 times 2y minus 9 equals 6 times y minus 17. So first things first, gave them some time to work it out on their own. Some people got it, some people don't. But it seemed like a majority of the students were a little confused about a couple of things. So let's go over a couple of these problems. So I'm just going to push number 3 down a little bit, push down number 2 just to get some room. So first things first. If you notice, there's no operation in between the 2n and the parentheses. So if I were to tackle this, that means I'm going to distribute that 2n to everything inside the parenthesis. Distributing meaning I'm going to multiply it. So 2 times 9, that gives me my 18. I'm back to writing with this mouse again. Then n times n squared is going to be n to the 3rd power. So we kind of have to go back to when we dealt with exponents. So since we're multiplying that 2n, that means we're going to add the exponents. And where the 3 came from, when you have 2n, it's actually that n is being raised to that 1st power. So if I add the 1 plus the 2, that's where that 3 came from. We have a minus sign, so we'll bring that down. Then 2 times 2 gives me my 4. Now n times n, remember, is raised to the 1st power, will be n squared. Have our minus sign. Then 2 times 12 gives me 24. And since we have n alone by itself, we're just bringing it down. Okay? So this is my solution. And I know it looks like there should be more to it, but remember, I'm trying to break down these concepts slowly but surely. All right? So for number 2, let me switch colors. So for number 2, we have 8g squared h. So this whole expression here, I'm going to distribute to everything inside the parenthesis. So now, 8 times 1 will give you my 8. G squared times g squared, remember, we're going to add our exponents, so that gives me g to the 4th. And we just have an h, so we're bringing the h down. Plus 8 times 9 is 72. G squared, there's no other g's here, so we're just going to bring down the g squared. And h times h will give me h squared. Okay, minus 8 times 6, 48. G squared times g will be g to the 3rd power, because remember there's a 1 as the exponent, and we're adding the exponents because we're multiplying. And then h times h will give me h squared. And then this will be my solution. Okay? So all we had to do for number 1, number 2 was just basic distribution, which is multiplication. And then we had to add the exponents, the ones that had the similar variables. But look at number 3. What's different? Hopefully you notice that we have an equal signs. So every time we have an equal signs, that means we're solving for something. So looking at the expression, or actually the equation, 12 times 2y minus 9 equals 6 times y minus 17, it looks like I should be solving for my variable, which in this case is y. So the first thing I should do is distribute. In this left-hand side, distribute the 12 to everything. And on the right-hand side of that equal sign, I'm going to distribute the 6. So 12 times 2y gives me 24y minus 108, okay, because it's 12 times 9, equals 6y minus 102, okay? So now we're solving for our variable. We're solving for y, which means we need to have our y's on one side of the equal sign and then our numbers or our constants on the other side of the equal sign. So we can choose whatever side we want our variable on. Normally everybody wants their variable on this left-hand side. So that means this 6y has to come over here. So since it's a positive 6y, I have to do the opposite. I need to subtract 6y on both sides. Okay? And when I do that, these 6y's are going to cancel out. The only way it can cancel out if one of your coefficient is positive and that same coefficient has an opposite sign, which is negative. Okay? So you can't have 6y and then you add 6y on both sides because then your 6y's will not cancel out. So when you subtract your 6y's, that means my y's are going to be on this left-hand side. That means this minus 108, I need to add that on both sides so I can have all my constants on one side of the equal sign. So I know normally a lot of people do this step into 2 different steps. But for us, we can actually do this in one clean swoop. So now, 24 minus 6 gives me 18. Y equals a negative 102 plus 108 will give me a positive 6. And I'm solving for y. That means I need to get rid of this 18. So 18y is multiplication. In order for me to cancel it out, I have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I have to divide 18 on both sides. So these two 18s cancel out. Then you have y equals. My answer is not 3 because it's 6 divided by 18, not the other way around. So it's 6 divided by 18. If you're doing it in your calculator, you have 0.3 that's repeating, or as a fraction, it will be reduced to 1/3 because 6 and 18, they both have 6's in common. Okay, so greatest common factor. So if I divide this top by 6, I will get 1. If I divide this bottom by 6, I will get 3. That's how it will reduce. And then here's my solution. Okay? So I wanted to just to see where the students were when they were solving either for a variable or just simplifying by doing the distribution. So one of the things I wanted to remind them that when you're multiplying a polynomial by a monomial, is to remember that you need to add your exponents when you're multiplying. So that's all this is saying, okay? So whenever you're multiplying, you need to add your exponents. So, did a couple examples because we spent a lot of time with the quiz. So this first example was 3x times x squared plus 3. If you want to, you can hit pause and try to solve it yourself. If you decide to keep going, so we're going to distribute the 3x to both sides. So you have 3x times x squared, which gives me a 3x cubed, plus 3x times 3 gives me 9x. This is my solution. Okay? It's as simple as that. All you're doing is multiplying the coefficients. In this case was 3, 1, okay, and also my constant, 3. You're multiplying those numbers, but you're adding the exponents. Hence the 1 plus 2, that's where the 3 came from. And the last one, number 2. So we had 6y cubed times 4y squared minus 9y minus 7. Or we'll show the distribution this way. So we're distributing everything inside the parenthesis. So let's go. 6 times 4 gives me 24. Y to the 5th, because we're adding the exponents, minus 6 times 9, 54. Ooh, that was ugly. 54y to the 4th power, minus 6 times 7, 42, y cubed. And this is my solution. Okay? So that's all we have to do. So what I did was they had a classwork / homework assignment. So this, right here, okay, the assignment was 8-5. It was a practice. Now, I know your kids and yourselves looked at this paper and you said, oh my goodness, Miss Connor has lost her mind. The reason why I'm saying that is that it was, what, 18 problems for one, 12 problems for another, so that's 30, and then on the back it had 16. So it was like 46 problems on this paper. I know. First thing you're like, my child can't do that. Well, guess what? I didn't ask your child to do that. So for the 8-5, where it says adding and subtracting polynomials, there is a problem. There's basically 1 out of 18 problems. They only had to pick a total of 6 problems. But here's the restriction. 3 of those problems have to deal with addition, and 3 of those problems have to deal with subtraction. They can pick any 6 problems that they wanted as long as 3 of them dealt with addition and 3 of them dealt with subtraction. The next part where it says find each product, so it dealt with the multiplication. Okay, they only had to do 4 problems, so they get to pick which 4 problems they want to do. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be 5, 8, 9, 12. Any 4 problems they wanted to pick. Okay. Then on the back of the sheet where it says multiplying a polynomial by a binomial, so this is when they're actually solving the equations. They get to pick 4 problems. So 6 problems from the adding and subtracting, 4 problems from the product, and 4 problems for the equation. So again, they could pick any 4 problems they wanted on that sheet, which gives them a total of 14 problems. Some of the classes I know for my A-Day class, especially my 3rd and my 4th period class, was able to get started on a couple of those problems. But my 2nd period took a little bit longer, which is fine, but we were able to get to the instructional piece. Again, if you're a little stuck on this and you need extra help, I'm available first lunch during Wildcat Hour. Do not forget, okay? So because this homework will be graded, and I will give you the updates of the quizzes, and they should be updated later on today. Okay? So any questions or comments? First lunch, Wildcat Hour. All right? So that was the instruction for today, and also it will be the instruction for Thursday,